Chosen one. The game is already over because you 1000% can hear people's private thoughts out loud. They are not slick, and you're just shaking your head at the performance they think is fooling you. In this season, the universe is proving you were right to trust your gut, as the very people you've been quietly watching finally show their hands and confirm that your internal radar is a precision instrument they can never bypass. There was a window of time when these people were good, really good. The work was sharp, the communication was clean, the reliability felt solid. They picked up the phone, delivered on time, and showed up with the energy and effort that made you think, okay, this is someone I can work with, this is someone I can trust. So you let them in. Not naively, you are never naive, but you are fair. You believe in giving people the opportunity to prove what they claim to be, and for a while, long enough, they did. Here is what you did not know then that you know now. They were not showing you who they are. They were showing you who they needed you to think they were, because you were the prize, your energy, your standard, your whole operation. You were the elevation they needed to attach to. People perform at their absolute highest when impressing you still matters to them. But the performance cannot sustain itself forever. The mask gets heavy, and the real person underneath did not have half the discipline, half the integrity, or half the work ethic that the opening act promised. So when their life started crumbling on the inside, the relationship going sideways, the finances getting unstable, the emotional wreckage they never addressed growing louder, the performance cracked. What leaked through was slop. Lazy, careless, I cannot be bothered slop, handed to you like you would not notice, as if your eye had not been sharpened by years of knowing exactly what quality looks like. They miscalculated. Badly, because you noticed from the first crack. You filed it. You watched to see if it was a one-time thing or a pattern, and when it became a pattern, which it always does, you were not surprised. You were already prepared. You just gave them a fair chance to prove you wrong. They did not. The first time they slipped, you noticed. The first time the work came back wrong, the first time the phone went unanswered a little too long, the first time the energy shifted in a way that was small but unmistakable, you noticed. And here is what you did. Nothing visible, no confrontation, no dramatic reaction. You quietly adjusted your internal assessment of this person and filed it under watch this more carefully. That is the disciplined move that most people do not have the composure to make. The untrained reaction is to either explode immediately or ignore the crack completely. You did neither. You clocked it, held it, and gave enough space for the full picture to develop on its own. Here is what you understand that most people do not. A single slip tells you something, but the response to being caught in a slip tells you everything. Does this person own it? Do they communicate? Do they make it right without being asked, or do they get slick about it? Do they manufacture excuses that are just creative enough to sound almost reasonable? Do they flip the conversation and make you feel like your expectations are the actual problem? That maneuver has a name. It is called gaslighting. And the moment you felt the first whisper of it, the moment things shifted toward making your standards the issue rather than their behavior, you knew. This is not a person having a hard stretch. This is a person revealing their character. And their character is not what the opening performance advertised. So you kept watching, kept filing, and kept giving just enough space. And now that space is gone. They used every inch of it. Here is what is quietly brilliant about your position. While these people thought they were getting away with it, while they were handing you half effort and watching to see if you would accept it, you were not accepting it. You were documenting it. You were building your case and planning your exit with the calm precision of someone who has already made up their mind. That is power. That is not victimhood. That is strategy. You are also a student of people, not in a clinical way, but in a deeply engaged way that looks from the outside like you are simply being present. Underneath that composed exterior, though, you are always observing. You clock punctuality, not just whether someone shows up, but how they handle being late. Do they communicate ahead of time or apologize after? You clock follow-through, not just whether something got done, but how the gap between what was promised and what was delivered gets explained. You clock consistency. Does this person behave the same way when they believe they are being watched as when they think no one is looking? That gap between public behavior and private behavior is exactly where a person's real character lives, and you have always been able to see it. You do not even try that hard. It is just how you are built. You absorb, you retain, you connect details that others did not notice were worth connecting, and then the full picture assembles in your mind, and you simply know with the quiet certainty of someone who has never needed outside validation to trust what they perceive. That is what has made you dangerous to every person who was not being straight with you. If you felt called by this message, hype this video so other chosen ones like you can be reached. Once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. These people are up one day and gone the next. They are present when they need something from you and unavailable when you need something from them. They are communicative when their personal life is flowing and silent and evasive when it is not. They deliver excellent work when they are trying to lock you in and deliver slop once they believe the relationship is secured. These people do not have a stable internal world. They are completely at the mercy of their external circumstances. When things are good for them, they bring their best. But the moment something tips sideways in their personal world, and for people like this, something is always tipping, the quality of everything they touch collapses alongside it. You end up paying for someone else's chaos. You absorb the instability of a person who cannot regulate their own internal world. You manage their inconsistency alongside your own life, your own responsibilities, and your own growth. And somehow they have convinced you this is just how things work. Stop right there. Everyone goes through hard times, but not everyone makes their hard times your problem without warning, without accountability, without acknowledging they have broken the agreement. What separates people worth keeping from people who need to go is not perfection, it is integrity. It is the willingness to say, I dropped the ball, I see it, let me fix it, and the willingness to communicate before you have to chase. The people exiting your life right now do not have that. They have excuses. They have the audacity to hand you their worst and wait to see if you say something. And when you do, they look at you like you are the problem. You are not the problem. You never were. The fact that you are still standing, still sharp, and still clear on what you deserve after everything you have navigated, that alone tells you everything about who you are. You have been clocking these people correctly from the beginning. Now it is time to understand the full picture, because their chaos is not random, their inconsistency is not carelessness. There is something underneath all of it that explains every behavioral pattern you have been observing. They are afraid of you, not in a simple way, in a deep, unspoken, they would never admit it way. Because when they look at you, really look at you, they see something their ego cannot reconcile. You show up, you deliver, you hold yourself to a standard that does not move depending on your mood or your circumstances. You carry that quality, that undeniable it factor that makes people feel your presence before you have even opened your mouth, and that thing cannot be faked, bought, or rehearsed into existence. They feel it every time they are around you. The gap between who they are and who you are is loud to them, even when you say absolutely nothing about it. Your existence holds up a mirror, and instead of using that mirror to motivate themselves, instead of using the proximity to someone like you to rise, they use it to justify sabotage. You've probably noticed a lot of chosen one channels on YouTube have stopped publishing, videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. That's exactly why I'm putting you onto something real, Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching chosen ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your Destiny Engine trial today, risk-free, and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. Here is how that sabotage works. It is quiet, it is subtle, it is almost undetectable unless you are paying the kind of attention you pay. They give you their second best work. They withhold information that would give you more leverage. They position themselves as indispensable while delivering as little real value as possible. They need you to need them, because the moment you do not, their entire position collapses. And then comes the boasting, the random, unsolicited announcements of what they have done, where they are going, who they know. That bragging has nothing to do with any actual conversation, and everything to do with the insecurity underneath it. That is the intimidation talking. That is the internal voice saying they are outgrowing me, they see through me, I need to remind them of my value. So they announce, they perform relevance, they make noise. Meanwhile you are sitting there, quiet, clocking every single word. Pay close attention to when these people share information versus when they go quiet, because it is never random, it is always strategic. When things are going badly and they need something from you, your sympathy, your time, your energy, everything opens up. The vulnerability arrives, packaged and ready, but the moment their situation improves, the information stops. You hear things second-hand or not at all. And when they do share, the news arrives, wrapped in a subtle brag, a name drop that was unnecessary, an update designed to remind you of their relevance rather than genuinely connect with you. You hear that difference. One feels warm and real, the other feels like a performance, and you have been clocking that distinction your entire life. What they do not realize is that every time they run that cycle, the strategic vulnerability, the sudden silence, the calculated boasting, they hand you a complete picture of their inner world. They reveal exactly where they feel insecure and exactly what they need you to believe about them. You understand them far more deeply than they have ever understood themselves. That is the real private thought you are hearing out loud, not just the lie they say with their words. The truth they broadcast with everything else. They have no idea who they are dealing with. This is the moment. This is where everything you have been observing, everything you have been feeling, and everything you have been filing quietly, it all converges into one clear, undeniable picture. The person who seemed cordial on the phone but gave you a strange vibe in person? They were hiding something serious underneath the pleasantness. Financial instability was brewing. A situation was unraveling behind closed doors. The people depending on them were about to be blindsided. You felt it on the first encounter and said to yourself, something is off with this person. Everyone else around you thought they were lovely. You were right. The service provider who impressed you in the beginning but eventually started delivering slop, that was not a bad stretch. That was a character reveal. The real person surfaced once the chase was over and the performance felt unnecessary. You noticed the first slip, watched the pattern confirm itself, gave them enough rope, and they used every inch of it. You were right about that too. The person who was present and helpful when their personal life was in chaos, using your time and energy as a distraction from their own wreckage, and then went distant and difficult once things stabilized for them. You felt that shift. You could not articulate it at first, but you felt it. You were never the priority. You were the escape hatch. And once the escape hatch was no longer needed, neither were their obligations to you. Right again. Here is why this moment is a convergence and not a crisis. You are not blindsided. You are not scrambling. You are not devastated. You are standing in the middle of the reveal, watching events unfold in the exact sequence your gut predicted, thinking one thing, I knew. From the beginning, I always knew. And because you knew, you never went all the way in on the version of reality they were selling. You kept the backup plan ready. You kept the exit mapped. You kept just enough distance between your full trust and their full access. That is mastery. That is not luck, not paranoia, not being difficult. That is what it looks like when someone trusts their own perception enough to protect themselves quietly, without drama, without announcement, without ever tipping off the person being observed. Most people assume that being right should feel victorious, but for you it never does. When the confirmation arrives, what you feel is not triumph, it is a deep, quiet clarity. It is the feeling of a weight you did not fully realize you were carrying, finally being set down, because holding an unconfirmed knowing is not light. You had to keep operating alongside this person, staying professional, giving fair chances, while internally managing what you already sensed. You held it without acting prematurely and without abandoning it. You waited. You let the truth arrive at its own pace, and now it has. And now you can breathe. You are not moving in anger, not with drama or confrontations or lengthy explanations of everything that went wrong. Anger is for people who are surprised. You are not surprised. You are decisive. Multiple connections are ending simultaneously. Each release is clean because you have been sitting with this decision long enough that the emotion has already settled into clarity. You know exactly which connections belong in your next chapter and which ones have expired. You know which people have shown you enough of their character that continuing to invest would mean choosing to participate in your own diminishment. You are not doing that. The professional relationship that has been delivering slop is finished, not with a scene, but with a decision. A quiet, non-negotiable decision, communicated simply and finally. You are no longer available to people who treat your standard as optional. The personal connection that has been one-directional for too long is finished as well, not with a lecture, but with a natural distance that grows as you stop reaching. You pull your energy back and let it redirect toward people and things that actually give back what you pour in. The dynamic where someone in a position of authority has been using that position in ways that do not serve you. You are already building the exit, quietly, strategically. No one needs to know the plan before the plan is ready. You move in silence until the move is complete. And here is the one that deserves its own spotlight, the family dynamic. Because sometimes the people you are releasing are not professional contacts. Sometimes they are relatives who have been in your corner in a way that always felt slightly conditional. They were present when it served them, absent when it did not, and quietly stirring things when they assumed you were not watching. You felt that energy in those family dynamics long before anyone named what was actually happening. You noticed whose congratulations came with a barely perceptible edge. You noticed whose advice always seemed to leave you slightly smaller than before they offered it. You noticed whose support arrived packaged with a subtle reminder of what you owed in return. Blood does not automatically equal alignment. Being related to someone does not make their energy safe for you. Some of the most significant damage to your peace and your sense of self has come from people who share your last name. The social pressure to maintain those connections because they are family has kept you anchored to dynamics that have been slowly draining your power. You know which ones. You have always known. Act on it now, quietly, deliberately, without drama. The people in your family who are genuinely and unconditionally in your corner are not the ones making you feel like you need to earn their support. Your bloodline does not determine your altitude. Move accordingly. Your standard is not too high. Your standard is the natural expression of someone who has mastered their own life. You know what quality looks like because you produce quality. You know what reliability looks like because you are reliable. You know what integrity looks like because you hold yourself to it, even when it is inconvenient, even when it hurts, even when no one would ever know if you let it slip. You have gone through real, painful, personal loss while still showing up for your obligations. You stepped outside, felt what you needed to feel, pulled yourself together, came back and did the work. Not because you are numb to it, but because you have a relationship with your own word that most people will never understand. When you commit to something, that commitment does not have an emotional override switch. So no, you do not lower the bar. The bar is not the problem. The people who cannot reach it are, and the solution is not bringing the bar down to where they are. The solution is finding the people who are already at that level, people who do not need to be coached, chased, or reminded, and who show up as who they are on their most difficult days, not just their easiest. One of the reasons releasing these people has felt harder than it logically should is because of how you are wired. When you invest in someone, when you genuinely choose them, trust them, and pour real energy into building something with them, loss hits hard. Not just inconveniently, it lands heavier than the situation rationally warrants. That is not weakness, that is the intensity of how you care. When you commit fully, and when something ends, even something that clearly needed to end, there is grief in it, because you are not just losing the person, you are losing the version of them you believed in, the version that existed before the cracks appeared. Grieve the person you believe they had the capacity to become. That grief is real, and it deserves acknowledgement. But then you stand up. You do not disappear into the loss. You feel it fully, and then you redirect, because motion is medicine for someone like you. Staying in the rhythm of your purpose processes grief faster and cleaner than stillness ever could. You keep your word to yourself. Even when everyone else dropped their commitments like they meant nothing, you held yours. You said you would do something, and you did it. That track record, the one between you and you, is the most important one in your life. You can trust yourself, and that self-trust is the foundation everything else is now being built on. For every connection you release, a space opens, and that space does not stay empty. What fills it is completely different from what was there before. The right people do not perform, they simply show up, on time, with what they said they would bring, ready to do the work at the level it deserves. There is no chasing, no wondering where they are, no questioning whether today is a good day for them to care. They are consistent because that is who they are on their worst day, not just their best. And when something does go sideways, because life happens to everyone, they tell you before you have to ask. They communicate, take ownership, and correct course, not because they are afraid of losing you, but because their own integrity demands it. That is the quality you have been owed all along. Some of these people have already been in the background of your life, waiting for space. You had them on the back burner because the front was occupied by people who were louder, more demanding, and more present in the way that draining people always are. Now that the front is clearing, the right ones are moving up naturally. Some of them are brand new, placed in your path at exactly the right time by something larger than coincidence. You are going to feel the difference immediately. Not a fireworks feeling, a solid, grounded, this finally makes sense feeling. Here is something that deserves to be said directly. One of the hardest parts of being someone like you is that genuine connection has always been rare. Not because you are difficult, though people who could not keep up with you have definitely said exactly that to your face. Your frequency is specific. Not everyone can hold a conversation at the depth you need. Not everyone can be around someone who perceives clearly without feeling exposed by the proximity. So when you find someone who can, someone who keeps up, who shows up without being prompted, who lets you be fully yourself, you hold on. Maybe tighter than the situation calls for sometimes, because that kind of connection is genuinely rare for you, and you know it. And when those people turn out to be performing depth rather than actually having it, the loss feels personal in a way that goes far beyond the practical. But the real ones do not require you to hold on that tight. They stay. Not because you are managing the connection or constantly fueling it, but because the alignment between who you both are sustains it without effort. That kind of bond does not need to be maintained the way a failing arrangement needs constant attention. It just works. You are about to feel what that actually looks like. The space is being made for exactly that. Here is the larger picture, because what is happening right now is not just about unreliable people and necessary endings. There is a much bigger design at work, and you need to see it clearly. You are being prepared for something that requires you to be unburdened, something that requires your full power, not the compressed, accommodating, stretched past reason version of you that these situations have been extracting, but the full, activated, operating at capacity version that has been underneath all of this, waiting for the right conditions. Those conditions are being created right now. The clearing is not accidental. The people falling away are not falling randomly. The timing of all these revelations arriving at once, the masks slipping, the patterns becoming undeniable, the necessary endings presenting themselves, none of it is coincidence. It is orchestrated preparation, so that when the next level arrives, you can step into it cleanly and without looking back. Some of the disconnect you have been experiencing is not only about work ethic or reliability. Some of it is a lifestyle gap that nobody is naming out loud. You live a certain way. You handle your difficult seasons through discipline, through movement, and through showing up for your routines, even when everything else is falling apart. Some of the people around you are not doing that. They are managing their internal chaos through things they are not disclosing, and their erratic energy reflects it. Your ability to detect energy at the level you detect it picks up on that inconsistency, even when you cannot name the specific source. The energy of someone who is numbing themselves is fundamentally different from the energy of someone who is fully present, and you feel that difference before your mind has a chance to analyze it. The people arriving in their place are present, actually present. They are not dulled, not carrying residue into everything they touch. You are going to feel that difference immediately. What is coming on the other side of this clearing is real partnership, collaborations that multiply what you are building, and environments where your standard is the baseline, not the exception. The higher power guiding your life is not sending you into what is next, carrying dead weight. You are the centerpiece of what is being assembled. Trust the design. It knows exactly what it is doing. You are done processing. You are done giving mental real estate to what is exiting. It is time to talk about what you are actually built for. You are built for domination, not the loud, aggressive kind, but the quiet, undeniable, I showed up and everything shifted kind. The kind that does not need to announce itself. The kind that simply arrives, does the work at a level that cannot be disputed, and lets the results speak at a volume that drowns out every person who ever doubted. You have been running at partial capacity, not because you lack the capability. You are extraordinarily capable, but because the people around you could not keep up. And when you are the only one operating at full power in a given space, you eventually start compressing yourself so the gap is less visible, so the dynamic stays manageable, so you do not outpace the connection entirely. That compression comes off now. Your work ethic is not the exception anymore. It is the minimum expectation in the environment you are moving into. Your standard is not unreasonable. It is simply the standard, the one that everyone in your new space operates by naturally, without being asked. Your attention to detail, your precision, your refusal to accept output that does not honor the investment, none of that needs defense or explanation. It is just the way things work where you are going. You stop hemorrhaging energy on management. You stop chasing. You stop wondering. You stop translating your expectations into simpler and simpler language that somehow still ends up misunderstood. Everything that was leaking outward pours back into the work, back into the vision, back into the creative fire that has been running at a fraction of its actual intensity. Think of what you build when all of that energy comes home. Getting into position is not only mental, it is physical. It is the way you carry yourself and how you feel inside your own skin when no one important is watching. The version of you stepping into greater visibility starts on the inside and radiates outward. Go get the thing you have been postponing. Book the appointment. Return to the self-care practice you dropped because you were too busy absorbing everyone else's chaos. Start the workout. Take the hour of intentional quiet. Do whatever makes you feel like yourself again, after a season of feeling like a utility for people who did not appreciate the service, because that restoration is not optional, it is maintenance. It is the non-negotiable upkeep of the foundation your entire output runs on. When you feel restored, you move differently. You attract differently. People feel it before you say a single word. The right opportunities open when the right version of you is moving toward them. And when you are depleted, running on empty, managing situations that should not be yours to manage, you contract, you pull back, and the momentum assembling around you quietly dissolves because you were not available to receive it. You are not doing that anymore. Show up for yourself the way you have always shown up for everything else, with full effort, without apology. You walked in and felt everything before a single word was spoken. You said nothing. You watched. You waited. You let truth do its work at its own pace. And you stood completely still when the reveal arrived because you were never surprised. You heard the private thought the moment you arrived. You just gave it time to prove itself. That was not a vulnerability. That was a prophecy. Consider everything that unfolded from that first moment of knowing. Every crack you noticed, every behavioral pattern you documented, every space you gave for the full picture to assemble itself, every connection you released, every confirmation that landed exactly where your gut said it would, and every real person stepping forward as the pretenders cleared out, all of it traces back to that original knowing. Your gift was operating before you consciously activated it. It has always been operating, collecting information and protecting you from things you did not even know needed protecting against. And the people who thought they were slick, the ones who believed the performance was polished enough, the excuses creative enough, the manipulation subtle enough to pass undetected, they never had a chance. Not with you, not for a single moment. You hear private thoughts out loud. You always have. You heard the smile that did not reach the eyes. You felt the warmth that was calculated. You clocked the commitment that was made with no real intention of being honored. You saw the intimidation disguised as attitude and documented the quiet sabotage disguised as incompetence. You have been several steps ahead since the beginning. Think about how many times you showed up for someone who could not show up back. You gave your time, your attention, and your energy. You answered when they reached out and followed through when they needed it, because that is who you are. But there is a specific kind of drain that is worse than someone who never reaches out. It is the person who contacts you constantly to vent, to ask, to need, and then goes completely silent the moment you respond. They wanted the ear but not the answer. They wanted access to your energy without any reciprocity, and you noticed that pattern. You filed it, watched it repeat, and quietly built distance before they even realized the distance was building. That is your gift operating exactly as it should, protecting you from situations that would have cost you far more had you stayed longer. The private thoughts you hear are not always spoken words. Sometimes they are choices. Sometimes they are the action someone takes or deliberately does not take that broadcasts exactly where you fall in their priorities without a single word being said. You receive all of it, the action, the inaction, the warmth that arrives when someone needs something from you, and the silence that falls when they do not. Every signal that people believe they are keeping to themselves, you receive it in real time. They were never slick. The performance was always just a performance. You always knew you were watching one. You simply gave it time to finish before making your move. That same gift, the one that has been protecting you, filtering out the wrong people, and keeping you from fully investing in situations that were never going to honor your investment, it does not just play defense anymore, it becomes your greatest accelerant. You will know within a first exchange whether someone is real or performing. You will feel immediately whether a new environment is right or just a dressed-up version of what you just left. You will build with people who are actually equipped for it, in spaces designed for your level. The gift that was tested through every person who tried to game it, confuse it, or gaslight it into silence, comes out the other side not diminished. It comes out sharper, more precise, and more fully trusted by you than ever before. You walked in knowing, you gave it time, You let it prove itself once again. And now you walk out, not just with confirmation, but with conviction. The kind that does not need defending. The kind that does not ask for permission. The kind that moves, builds, attracts and leads. They thought they were slick. They never were. And now you step into everything that was always waiting on the other side of that